So my name's Phip Murray, and we're here at Langley Vale Farm, which is in central Victoria on Tongarong country. So it's a beautiful 404 hectare farm. So my family's been here since 1916, but I took over management in 2020 when my dad passed away, and now my sister Lizzie and I manage the farm together. So Langley Vale has been a really conventionally run farm over its history. It was a good farm. It was run as a really good farm, but as a very kind of conventional farm. And over the last 100 or so years, we're starting to see the same problems that a number of different Australian farms are seeing. So the land was cleared of trees. Rivers were, there's problems with erosions, there's problem with decreasing fertility, there's problems with decreasing biodiversity. And so now, since we took over, we've really tried to rethink the model a bit. So, and we're interested in how we can actually restore landscape function. So thinking about different tactics to regenerate land and restore waterways, build biodiversity and increase the fertility of the soil. So we're not sure of the exact model that's best for us. It feels like it's a really, in some ways, farming is it's a very old practice, but there's also all sorts of really interesting, exciting, emergent new ideas. So we're interested in things that are actually starting to restore and regenerate country rather than just a sort of extractive model where we're continually, taking out fertility and having to put in fertility through fertilizers. So we're starting to think more about restoration and regeneration. They're the things that excite us on this farm. Since taking over in 2020, we've done a whole bunch of different tactics. So we've been doing time-controlled grazing, we're returning land to habitat. A big area for us that needs some attention is soil. So the health of the soil is obviously really foundational to our farm. I mean, it's the foundation for our business. We run a breeding herd of Angus cattle, but it's also foundational to the actual to landscape function as well. So for supporting biodiversity and all sorts of different plants and animals and so forth. So this trial felt like a really exciting way for us to do a really structured test. So we've got a trial site which is about 7 hectares, and we've put together a series of 4 different trial plots. And we're going to use that to do 3 different tests for biological agronomy. So sort of a full test, a half strength test, and maybe a quarter strength test, something like that. And we'll also have one plot that is a kind of control paddock where we'll just put lime in. So we're interested in seeing what happens to our soil. So we'll be doing soil tests just to see how that changes the profile of the soil and builds fertility and perhaps and also sequesters carbon. And we'll also be doing things like just audits to see what kind of changes we have to pasture makeup, biodiversity and animal health. So we plan to do soil tests, blood tests and sap tests just to really monitor changes over the coming years just to see what happens as we start to tweak that soil biology. This trial site is all about testing things and monitoring them and then making a plan for the rest of our farm. So we've got 404 hectares here. This is a little 7 hectare site where we really get to test out some of the ideas. So the full recipe is really expensive. So it's not feasible to just do that across the whole farm to begin with. So we're really trying to be sensible around what's cost effective, what's the best, cost benefit ratio, but also just to look at, if our animals do better and we can carry more stock, then obviously that's a financial benefit for us as well. So there'll be a whole range of different indicators that we look at. And we're also interested too, just as farmers, what felt rewarding for us in terms of this biological agronomy. So actually, rather than just slapping on more and more chemicals, actually just thinking about how is the soil changing over time? What kind of, what small and large changes are we seeing? And in a way, it's going to be a slow burn just to really see what happens over time as we really start, building microbiology beneath the soil. Again, these are sort of slow stories that we'll be looking at over the coming years. So farms are actually a really, or the farming community that I'm part of is a very collaborative one. We're all sort of often texting each other most days to say, what did you do for this problem, or where can you get this thing? So I feel like this is an opportunity to meet a whole bunch of other farmers that are interested in doing on-farm trials as well. So, and I love on-farm trials because you get this really, it's on the ground, farmers are doing it, we're all noticing what works and what doesn't work. There will be farmers that have sort of similar soils to ours or sort of similar land profiles. So I'm just interested in swapping notes with them and finding out what works. So, and it is, the climate is changing. It's getting hotter and drier and more unpredictable. So it's becoming more and more urgent that we actually have a bunch of different strategies that we can use. So I feel like this community of farmers, we're all testing a bunch of different things, interested in the outcomes. So I think I'm really interested in, learning what works on our farm, but also swapping notes with a whole bunch of other people.